How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 25 of the Chi-Town podcast. Today, it's just me, and I'm going to be talking about the Bears and the Blackhawks. Apologies, this is probably going to be a shorter episode just because there is not a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, no Thomas. He's still feeling under the weather. He wanted to come on today, but I said we were talking, and it was kind of just a boring news day. Wednesday's episode, we're going to have probably a heated college basketball conversation. Um, as you know, on the Twitter, if you saw, I had a couple of new basketball takes that Thomas disagrees with. So that'll be a fun episode for sure. Stay tuned for that. But today, just me talking Bears and Blackhawks. I do want to shout out Mr. Koopman. That's Frank's dad. Frank was on the podcast on Friday talking baseball. We're going to try and get him on for some of his ridiculous baseball takes. He disagreed with a lot of my takes, a lot of Frank's takes, which, of course, we both have hot takes, but we're going to try and get him on here soon in the next couple of weeks. That'll be a super fun episode. So stay tuned for that. We'll let you know when that happens. But let's get into it today. Let's start with the Bears are cutting two of their cornerstone players from the 2018 NFC North Division winning team in Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair. I'll start talking about Whitehair. I mean, this is going to be a hole to fill. Like Cody Whitehair was a starter for the Chicago Bears on the offensive line. Could play multiple positions on the offensive line, and not so much the last couple years, but from 2018, 2019, 2020, really, really good football player. And I think the biggest thing about Whitehair is he was healthy. I mean, 2016, 16 games, 2017, 2018, 2019, 16 games, 2020, 14 games, 2021, 17 games, 2022, he was hurt, 12 games, 2023, 17 games. I mean, the famous saying, the best ability is availability. And he was consistently playing on the offensive line for the Chicago Bears. 2018, fantastic year. That was easily his best year of his career. But overall, like, he was a solid player. Again, this year and then last year, there were his struggles. He struggled snapping the ball, was getting beat a lot. It's going to happen as offensive lineman. You want to limit it. Still going to be it's a big hole to fill. I mean, Poles is now going to go need to get a center, which we knew at the beginning of the offseason anyway. But I do firmly believe the Bears' offensive line is a center away from being one of the better units in the league. And it sucks to see him go. 2018 was a fun year, and he was a big part of that. Good locker room guy. We'll always have the Tariq Cohen video. If you know, you know. I'm not going to explain that one, but still, that's a tough loss for the Bears. They're going to have to fill it. But let's talk about Eddie Jackson. And I think we knew that this one was coming. But man, I don't think a lot of Bears fans were prepared for this one, just because from 2017 to 2019, 2020, there was an argument to be made that he was the best safety in the NFL. And just from watching, getting really into football in the early to mid 2010s, he had the best season of a safety I've ever seen on that 2018 team. Started 14 games, 6 interceptions. He had 2 touchdown, 2 pick sixes, 15 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and then against the Bills, that touchdown. I think Roquan Smith forced a fumble. 41 tackles, solo tackles, 51 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. I mean, that season, everyone on that defense was just so good. But That was like Eddie Jackson's true season where he played his natural position and could just roam. And you saw how elite he was. And then they brought in Haha Clinton Dix the next year. He was still really solid, but didn't put up anywhere close to his 2018 numbers. 2019, only 2 interceptions, 5 passes defended, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. I mean, the fact the guy has 6 touchdowns in his career, and those first 2 years uh he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's insane. 5 touchdowns in 2 years as a DB is, man. I mean, it hurts. You knew it was coming. It's a smart move. They free up cap space. I think you add both of them up, it's about 30 million. Uh, they're not gonna get 30 million because there's gonna be some dead cap. I'm just trying to look up the exact number. Um, I can't find it. Oh, it, they'll get about $20 million in cap savings, which is large because if your team bring Jalen Johnson back, which I think I am, um, there's your Jalen Johnson money, and now they're up to, I believe, just under $70 million under the cap, so $70 million in cap space. Obviously, you'll have to sign rookie contracts, fill out the 53-man roster, and then you'll have free agency. The money will be spent. Right now, they're about third in cap space. Good move. Hurt the heart a little bit just because I loved Eddie Jackson. I honestly, like, that year for Christmas. It was a freshman in high school, and I was debating. It was between Eddie Jackson and Khalil Mack. Bears jersey. That was on my Christmas list. I ended up going with Mack, but Eddie Jackson was awesome, and sucks to see him go. But it is the right move. I trust polls. Well, let's get into some rumors here. I believe Thomas and I talked about this last week that Danielle Hunter is a possible free agent target for the Chicago Bears, and I'd love this signing at the right price. I mean, I think we were talking probably somewhere in the 3 years, $60 to $70 million range, which is pricey, but the production he has, his only downside is he will be 30 years old next year, but his production it's ridiculous. 16 and a half sacks last year, 10 and a half sacks 2 years ago. 2021, he was injured in 7 games. He still had 6 sacks. 2019, 14 and a half sacks. 2018, 14 and a half sacks. I mean, he's just produced every single year, been really good on that Vikings defensive line. Pair him with Dexter, Sweat, and Billings, and that defensive line is the strength of your defense. The only problem is they already have a lot of money invested in the defense. You have the middle linebackers, you have Tremaine, and then you have Edwards, and then you just sign Sweat to that big extension. And Jalen Johnson's going to get paid $20 to $22 million. So there is an argument to be made to we'll finally spend on offense, especially if you're drafting a rookie QB, or if you're sticking with Fields, help him out, which everyone knows he needs a lot of help. But if you're drafting Caleb Williams, bring him into an even better situation than he already is. Go get him another wide receiver, shore up the offensive line, maybe draft a running back. The biggest thing is Bears fans are always like, well, we've always had a good defense, but give me an offense that can score 30 points a game. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm perfectly fine if their only defensive move this offseason is drafting a defensive lineman or an edge rusher in the mid to late rounds of the draft and re-signing Jalen Johnson, because I think that unit is really solid. I personally, I'd rather see them go sign a center, take a wide receiver at 9, take Caleb Williams at 1, go sign uh, wide receiver 3 in free agency, maybe bring in another tight end to pair with Komet. And I'd like to see him draft a running back. I really hope they don't pay a running back in free agency. Spend the money, Poles. Smartly, though. We don't want any a Ryan Pace situation where uh, we're just constantly in dead cap and in cap space hell. And speaking of Ryan Pace, since the season's over, the Danny Trevathan cap is finally gone, which is that's just crazy to think about. But moving on, more reports that the Bears have received trade offers for Justin Fields, and apparently, Albert Breer said that the Bears haven't shopped Fields necessarily, is that they were kind of talking with other teams at the Senior Bowl. So I'm not sure where that's going to go. But the big note from Albert Breer is the expectation is that the Bears will have a plan in place in Indianapolis next week at the draft combine, which makes a ton of sense. Caleb Williams, if he bombs his draft interviews, they're probably not drafting him. And then depending on how much they like Drake May, it'll be him or Fields, or if Caleb Williams rocks out in his interviews, it'll be Williams is the pick. And then we'll see what they do with on the trade front with Fields. But I mean, I think the biggest thing about this is last year, especially around this time, I remember last year they traded the first overall pick during spring break. My spring break last year. I was actually coming home from a Cubs spring training game, and I was like, "Holy shit, we just got an insane haul for the first overall pick." Little did I know it would be this large with the first overall pick this year. But the big thing of about last year is all the rumors, especially around this time, all the rumors were Poles is confident in Fields. They're shopping the first overall pick. They're most likely going to trade the pick. This year, it's the other way around, and it's the Bears are taking Caleb Williams. It would take a generational haul for them to trade out of the number one, and that overall that doesn't mean anything. The only person that knows what he's going to do is Ryan Poles, right? But it is really interesting to see the difference from this year versus last year. Last year, everything was pro Fields. This year's everything is pro Caleb or pro taking a quarterback. Obviously, I'm a Caleb Williams believer. I think Caleb Williams has the ability to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. We're beating a dead horse. Thomas and I have gone back and looked at the Super Bowls. Who's won the Super Bowl? They've all had elite QBs. I think the one maybe was Nick Foles, but he was on a Linsanity run. Take the quarterback polls, please. Please. Moving on. There was an interview. I will say this, though. Since moving on this ties into what I was just saying, that the one pro Fields kind of report, not necessarily a report, it was just an interview, was Kevin Warren had said that he was really pleased with the return they got from last year, and they could do it again. I'm going to try and find the actual quote. One moment, please. I cannot find it, but essentially his interview was extremely pro Fields, and it you can't discredit it because he's the president, right? he is the president, and obviously he's not making the football decisions, right? He's more of, we'll get to what he's screwed up in uh, with the stadium. Apparently, this is the new rumor, but he was brought in to move the Bears to a new stadium. He's not the deciding factor on if the Bears should trade Fields or keep Fields. That's Ryan Poles. Kevin Warren is more of the business operations for the Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles is the football operations. Speaking of Kevin Warren, though, apparently the new report is the Bears are looking at the lakefront again for a new stadium. And this would be dumb because the lakefront, while it's a great scenic location for a football stadium, is it'd be the same problems. Pain in the ass to get to, no parking. There's not really train that goes by it. Arlington Heights is absolutely perfect for a stadium. There are three major highways, three major highways that go the exit you get off on 290 and 90. Those are the two of the biggest highways in Illinois. You get off on both of those, boom, you're in Arlington Heights. You get off, there are two train lines that run through there. And the train station is right next to where the Arlington racetrack was. It is the perfect location. Essentially it'd be the Disney World for Chicago Bears because you could build a stadium, you could have a bunch of parking, you could build the infrastructure like Wrigley Field and Wrigleyville has. And it'd be so easy to get to. They make so much money. And then not only for the Bears, you get the Super Bowl. You'd get the Big Ten championship because they'd move that from Indianapolis. You get you get a Final Four for college basketball. You get so many more concerts because it would be an indoor stadium. I mean, if there were Olympics, you'd probably get an Olympic event in there. Obviously, the World Cup coming to the United States in 2026, no stadium will be done by then. But if there another World Cup was to come to the United States, you'd probably be a host city for that World Cup. It makes way too much sense for them not to build in Arlington Heights. More rumors. Brandon Ayuk apparently unhappy in San Francisco. And the new rumor circulating Bears Twitter is, excuse me, sorry about that. The new rumor circling Bears Twitter is that trade pick 9 for Ayuk, and I think it was pick 31. I'm going to double check. It would be, yes, it would be Chicago receives Brandon Ayuk and the 31st overall pick. The 49ers receive the 9th overall pick. And with that pick, they draft Joe Alt, which that's a steep price. Brandon Ayuk is a really good player. The only issue I would have with this is that you have all this cap space, and now you're paying you'll have to pay Brandon Ayuk versus drafting a rookie contract wide receiver. So it would be something to monitor. Because I don't see how the 49ers are going to retain him because you're going to have to pay Purdy pretty soon. He's going to want, or Ayuk's going to want a large contract. You already have the McCaffrey contract. The 49ers, if there was a year to do it, it was this year to win the Super Bowl. I think they're probably still the favorite for the NFC next year. But after that, then you're getting into the there are just other teams. I mean, it's so hard to get back. You saw they were there in 2019, lost. It took them 4 years to get back to the Super Bowl, lost again. I mean, you're only going to be able to pay Brock Purdy the league minimum for so long, and you got to take advantage of it. So they're my pick out of the NFC as it stands right now, but we'll see how the offseason and the draft goes. Because the Lions are up and coming. The only problem is I don't think Jared Goff can win you a Super Bowl. Um, the Eagles are always still there. Who knows for the Cowboys? They always say it's their year. The Seahawks have a decent up and coming roster. The Cardinals have an up and coming, not necessarily up and coming, but the Cardinals are in a position to succeed for the future. It's tough. It's really hard to win in the NFL. I do think the 49ers kind of blew their chance at winning a Super Bowl. But what are you going to do? But let's talk Bears. This is not 49ers podcast. Should the Bears tag Jalen Johnson if they cannot come to an agreement? Yes. Yes, they should. If he doesn't want to play, that's fine. You have to trade him. But you cannot just let him walk. You can always tag him and then trade him and let another team pay him and at least get something for him. If they tag him and traded him, you could probably get a second round pick. I do think he will sign a contract extension with the Bears. The second round pick thing, that's like worst case scenario. If you're tag and trade Jalen Johnson, you should 100% be able to get a first round pick. But I don't think it will matter. I think he's going to sign an extension somewhere 4 years, $19 to $21 million per year is my guess. That's really all the news that we got that I have for the Bears today. So let's talk Blackhawks here. Is Connor Bedard is finally back, and the team is exciting to watch again. And it was clearly it's clearly evident at how much he drives the offense, and we'll talk about that in a second. But with good news comes bad news. Lucas Reichel sent down to Rockford. I think everybody saw it coming. It's unacceptable. I had such high hopes for him this year, and it hasn't worked out. I do think he will still be an effective top 6 player, but there are a lot of reasons for concern right now. Last year, his age 20 season, 23 games played, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. This year, age 21 season, 50 games played, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. To put it frank, he just has not been good at all. The flashes have been there, but I don't expect flashes from him. I expect consistent production. And it'd be a different scenario if he hit the post 18 times this year. But when you're watching the game, it's like, is he even out there? Sometimes you can't even, you don't even know if he's there. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Hopefully he regains that confidence back in Rockford and kind of is able to right the ship. And I mean, Richardson said he does not expect Lucas Reichel to be in Rockford long term. It's more of rebuild your confidence. There are a lot of young, solid offensive players down in Rockford that can help you out. And then just figure it out. Really, that's the whole point of this Rockford stint. And I know Thomas's roommate, Minnesota Wild fan, Brock Faber's not the Calder favorite. He should not get a first place vote. It is so obviously going to be Bedard, and the Faber, for Calder argument, died 5 periods into Connor Bedard's return because he already had 3 points. And I was just saying this earlier. It is so evident at how much better of a team the Blackhawks are with Connor Bedard. He drives the the offense. He is the offense, essentially. And there is not one player under 20 that would be um successful on this Blackhawks team. And I, I, I think there's an argument to be had that Connor Bedard is already a top 15 NHL player just for how much success he's had on this terrible, terrible, terrible Chicago Blackhawks team. I mean, you put Logan Cooley on here. We're probably talking about Cooley how we're talking about Lucas Reichel. It's actually ridiculous how good this kid is, and he's not even scratching the surface yet. There is a serious chance that he will be a perennial 125 point player with a team around him. Time will tell. He's got to stay healthy. His injury this year that was a freak injury. There's nothing to it. The Blackhawks are underway in Carolina tonight, and 3 minutes and 30 seconds of the game, they are going to the power play. So we'll see if they can get on the board here. 0-0. Carolina dominated those first 3 minutes. And breaking news from Robert Murray. The Chicago Cubs are in agreement on a contract with David Peralta. Oh boy. Good depth piece. That is telling that what they think about the Cody Bellinger situation, which I disagree with, but who knows? We'll see what happens with that. I don't want to say it's a nothing burger, but it is interesting. Thomas and I will talk about this on Friday, but just breaking news on the Cubs is they have made a signing. We will have something to talk about on Friday. We'll have a lot to talk about with the Cubs on Friday. Golly. It's looking very bleak for the outcome on free agency. I believe the Blackhawks are about to go on a 5-on-3 for 1 minute and 42 seconds. So let's see if they can get on the board. Speaking of the Blackhawks, patience is key. Help is on the way. Oliver Moore, Frank Nazar, Ethan Del Mastro, Colton Dock. Another top 3 pick most likely this year. Help is on the way. And it's going to be rough. They're probably going to be very bad next year. It would not surprise me at all if the Blackhawks finish bottom 3 again. Now, I could see them finishing bottom 3, and I could also see them finishing around 10. It all depends on how the free agent process goes, and I guess also who they draft. Because I think the only prospect that would play right away is Celebrini. And let's get into my top 3 for the Blackhawks. Obviously, Celebrini's 1. Celebrini should be number 1 on everybody's list. Number 2, I have Caden Lindstrom. He's kind of soared through the draft rankings. Big, I've talked about him before. Big center would be perfect for this team. And then number 3, I have Artem Levshinov, big defenseman at Michigan State. Any one of those 3 guys, I think, is the perfect pick for the Blackhawks. I do expect them to get a top 3 pick this year. if they fall to 4, then I'm cool with a Sam Dickinson or Saleyev, because they need a right-handed shot defenseman. Uh, that's the one thing in their prospect pool that they are missing. Speaking of defensemen, let's talk Kevin Korchinski. He was benched for a little bit in the previous game. Richardson said he just made a couple bad decisions, but then got him back out there. I don't know if I agree with benching your young players. This is a developmental year. But he has shown flashes. I had said that his comp is Cale Makar. That's an extremely lofty comp. I don't think he'll be as good defensively as Makar, but I think the offensive production can be there. And you saw when he scored a goal a couple days ago. You see the potential. It's can he realize the potential? And someone who is realizing their potential is Philip Kurashev. Yeah. He will make a lot of money playing on Connor Bedard's wing. And I'm really excited to see how their chemistry will kind of grow as the rest of this season plays out and the next season. Typical Blackhawks fashion, they fail to score on the 5-on-3. What did you expect for the worst power play and the worst team in the league? That's all I have to say about that. But I forgot to make a banner for this. Let's do our Tankathon spins to close podcast out. All right, here we go. Tankathon spin number 1 has us fall to 2. I'd be fine with that. Has Seattle jump from 10 to 1. Wow. Tankathon spin number 2 has us fall all the way down to 3. Columbus gets some revenge for last year. They jump up to 1. Tankathon spin number 3 has us staying at 1. We'll end it on that. That's the best news that any Blackhawks fan could get. And the league will actually melt down if the Blackhawks get 2 first overall picks in a row. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you for listening. Again, apologies for the short episode. Definitely stay tuned for Wednesday's episode if you enjoy college basketball, because it's going to get spicy with some of the takes here from Thomas and from me. But with that, we'll see you Wednesday. And Tom will be back, so you won't have to listen to me for 33 straight minutes. Have a good one.